Yo, man, what's going on? You heard about the new thing that just dropped?
No. What dropped? A bomb somewhere?
New terrorist just dropped, man. ISIS-K. It's almost like Special K, except they'll specially kill you.
Oh man, yeah. I saw some news. Like in the sense, I was scrolling through Twitter. I know you get the latest shit before me, but all I saw was like Tulsi, a video of her, and I was like, oh man, that's hot. I gotta stop and listen. And then I was like,
Tulsi, man, her podcast still hasn't started like 6 months later.
oh yeah, this is still together. She better have something really good to drag it on for 6 months.
I think she moved it on. She moved on to Rumble. She didn't even bother like
Yeah.
starting it.
I expect something, like with less clothes, having waited for
Yeah,
this
we
long.
can
Yeah.
dream.
Yeah. Anyway, I saw Tulsi talk about some sort of a message. She gave him out a message about losing people and some human tragedy. But I will let you lead the way. So talk about this. What is it?
Yeah, man. So this new, new for most people, ISIS-K, K standing for Khorasan. It's some kind of like alleged group of senior Al Qaeda members in Syria that have now moved on to freaking Afghanistan. And of course, in Syria, I'm pretty sure they were supported by our lovely three-letter friends, the CIA. But somehow they're bad here. So it's funny how all this geopolitics works. They're bad, and Taliban's completely against ISIS and Al Qaeda are like mortal enemies. And I think the only reason Al Qaeda even was there pre 9/11 is because Osama was paying them. So
Yeah. So I've kind of had a brief look at who this group is. So this particular group, who are the ISIS-K? So there's actually an Australian article from ABC about these people. So how many people died, by the way, in this terrorist attack?
I think close to 90 plus people, maybe at last count, maybe over 100, but I think
Holy
12, 15 U.S. service members, which of course was the first headline here. And it's like 15 people died, and then under it, like 90 other people. Oh, really? Like the 90 is less than the 15 now somehow. I guess it's something to do with like that Family Guy cartoon where your life value depends on the shade of your skin color.
Okay, so I've had a look at the summary. So bomb killed 72 Afghans and 13 US soldiers. Evacuation speeds up despite the ISIS threat. So Western official Biden says US will hunt the bombers down. Nearly 100,000 evacuated in 12 days. So so I know we kind of had a bit of a laugh about last week about the Afghan airport evacuations. We were saying that maybe they were just there to see them off, but right now the pictures we are getting is that even after deadly explosions, the Afghan airport is packed. So are we going to are we going to re-evaluate our position on this? Because I would say that it's kind of, I mean, like, if a fucking bomb goes off killing 80 people, I would stay the fuck clear out of that place, right? But but people are still flooding into this airport despite a bomb wanting to get the fuck out of there. So are we not getting the full picture of what's going on here?
Well, I think it's literally like a free green card entry airport at this point. So, I mean, that would make anybody run to an airport. So that's probably primarily the first. I mean, you could literally be a freaking Taliban or Al Qaeda person pretending to be a refugee and show up here and be processed or whatever to get the hell out. I mean, that's probably the fastest track immigration system for the U.S. working right now, because everywhere else, especially during the pandemic, they shut down a lot of this shit, and a lot of people wanting to come here who had put in. The process already takes forever, and it became even worse. But these guys are getting like expedited processing. So, looking at the state of that country, I can't really blame them. But on the other hand, like, the people who are excavating them out of that country are the people who've caused half the mess. So
Yeah. I mean, and they have their own agenda for doing it, because suddenly, for any time the other day, Muslim refugees, fuck them, our borders, we fuck off, we are full, blah blah blah. But when it comes to wanting to paint some kind of a narrative to then suddenly you become a bleeding heart. But it's the same with like fucking in China, those Uyghurs or whatever, suddenly you see this all these neocons sort of being there, like they have endless empathy towards these people, but even though these people are Muslims, but only because it gives them a foot in the doorway to start up shit with China. It's always tied to some type of an agenda like that, and it's the same here. So they want all these Afghan Muslims. They want to sort of sort of empathize with them only because it gives them sort of a like broader access to continue with their hostile foreign policies. Yeah, so Taliban. So we know that this particular group, ISIS-K log, so they don't Taliban and ISIS-K don't get along. Why? And to put it bluntly, ISIS-K and Taliban are, well, they're bitter enemies because ISIS-K have criticized the Taliban for their willingness to negotiate with the US, including of recent discussions in Doha, Qatar, that led to the withdrawal of foreign troops from Afghanistan. So the Taliban militia have, this is what the ISIS-K says, Taliban militia have been evacuating hundreds of their foreign employees, translators, and spies who were working for the interests of the American army for many years, ISIS-K said in a statement claiming responsibility for the Kabul attack. So, yeah, so for anyone out there who is trying to paint this narrative, oh, you know what, this is what happens when you give all this power to the Taliban. It's the Taliban, man. It's Biden's fault for working with the Taliban. Just know that the fucking people who bombed the airport are not the Taliban. It's in fact an enemy of the Taliban.
Not just that, an ISIS-K member did the second most deadly attack on a CIA base ever in, I think, 2015 or 2016. They bombed this Camp Chapman in Afghanistan, right? Like 8 CIA officers died. And I think right after that, they closed the camp down. They interrogated like 90 Afghans for 3 days without letting them know, letting their families know. Typical extraordinary rendition shit, except these are the people that work for them. But this was a guy who was like a double agent. They thought they had got him to spy on Taliban, whereas this guy was a freaking ISIS-K guy who decided to like bomb them. Oh. So these guys have been around for like a few years. They're not like brand new or anything. It's just that now that they're literally like, they serve the CIA narrative in Syria, but are now also serving a different narrative in Afghanistan.
So talk to me a little bit about this press conference Joe Biden had. I've seen clips here and there, but I haven't. I don't really have a reference point to it.
All I saw was a tweet by some shitlib reporter like Jonathan Chode or whatever, where they were like literally saying that the media is worse and more against Biden than they were against Trump. I think Greenwald just laughed it off and he goes, this is the psychotic nature of the U.S. corporate media. I felt just as much as sleepy as I do now watching that guy freaking speak, man. I mean, I've never seen such a propped up dude. I mean, at least they're still trying with him. I think they've given up on Kapmala, but they're really trying to like prop this straw man up. But he's already got I think he's just dipped below 40% in approval ratings. Or maybe he's just in the 40s, I think. And they're acting like it's the end of the world. But you know what? It's going to get worse. So
there's a lot of,
it's just the beginning.
There's a lot of talk about him stepping down to let Kapmala be the president. Because even when I go to the extreme conspiracy realm and stuff like that, I see this because they were... so the conspiracy guys, right? They are trying to relate say that Kapmala will be the 47th president, and they give numerous examples of Hollywood movies where the first woman president of America happens to be the 47th. I'm not too sure which examples they are referring to, but I mean, like you do see like even in Air Force One. Remember, there's like a chick who is the vice president, and she is supposed to be she's supposed to take the place of
Oh
the
yeah, yeah. That
president.
was that British, the one who plays Cruella in Disney's Dalmatians movie, right?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, she
Yeah,
wasn't a bad looking girl to be honest. And remember how she was supposed to take her, and then she tears the whole acceptance speech and stuff like
yeah.
yeah. So anyway, so that's what they're saying that Biden's gonna do, and so. But yeah, it's a bullshit narrative because media never gives Biden curveballs. I mean, imagine if they do. I mean, the guy can barely like take on like a softball, yeah, like a straight shot. Imagine a curveball. So so it's always everybody else who has to bear the grunt. I think Jen Psaki walked out right this week because. When she was, I think one of the reporters asked her about if they have any regrets or whatever for generals focusing on NG on going woke, and then she suddenly just walked out of the press conference. So I don't know how long she can keep it up, to be honest. I mean, I hope she keeps it up a bit longer because as you and I both know, we both kind of have a secret crush on her.
Well, I don't know, man. She's getting to be annoying as hell. She's trying to, they're trying so hard to compare Biden to like some kind of historical FDR. So she's now trying to say that this current Afghan excavation or whatever the hell it is now the biggest airlift in history, bigger than the Berlin airlift. They're trying to like put all these parallels, like there's some kind of great administration doing great things.
Yeah.
You fucking turds, man. All you guys are doing is just running with your tails behind your legs because, your money making, the money making is just not happening. And I mean, I'm still very puzzled as Biden pulling out, man. This guy was like a tool of the military industrial complex. I mean, I think this might be the narrative. I mean, we keep looking for it, but this could be a narrative of getting him out. Like you said, they needed a way to get him out, right?
Yeah.
And the corporate media is all for war, so they can easily say, right, he's the worst president ever for pulling out, and look at the way it was done, and this, that, and the other, and this gets him out of the way. But I can't think of any other reason because he's always been a nice, loyal servant to the MIC, Iraq War, fucking Afghanistan, whatever, prison complex. That's what he is. He's a Wall Street guy, basically.
But didn't she look great in that bright pink dress yesterday when she was at the press conference?
I'm actually sick of her, bro. To be honest, she's just annoying now at this point. It's just like a mannequin. She's got this death stare, and I mean, it's just the whole sneering shit-lib vibe would make even the most beautiful person on earth look like a piece of turd to me. So. It doesn't matter what she says, what she does. It's just her being of that ilk.
Do you think though that I don't know? This is once again I'm going back to the extreme conspiracy thing. I saw some guys saying that the whole poppy fields and the heroin trade in Afghanistan is of no use anymore because there is a new play in town that is cheaper to manufacture. And far more potent than heroin that's flooding the markets in the United States, and that's the fentanyl from China. So, which is, I hear that it's incredibly easier to make and distribute. And so one of the reasons why US is suddenly pulling out of Afghanistan is because there is no longer a market for opioids and heroin because of this game-changing drug. I don't know where I stand with it. I haven't done enough research. I don't know much about the drug markets to know if this is all true, but I'm just putting it out there. So, so if anyone of you are listening, you can do your own research and see if there is any merit to what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because fentanyl is like a complete lab thing, right?
Yeah.
Made in a freaking lab.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be incredibly light in weight, which makes logistics so much. I mean, I know that it's supposed to be really fucking bad for you, but at the same time, it's bad for you apparently because of the way you overdose on it. So I guess it's a lot like heroin that way. But we know that heroin's fucking addictive, right? It's like even hearing about it gives me the chills. So we don't know what. I mean, I know that with drugs, there are things that are actually physically addictive, and there are things that you're just addicted to the feeling of getting high. So it is sort of more psychological. I'm not a junkie enough to know all these differences, but I do know that heroin's supposed to be like physically addictive, which is why when you're like a heroin addict or whatever, it's very hard to kick off that habit. I hear.
Well, even over here, the opioid addiction is just like guys like the Sackler family and all just getting fucking, making shit ton of money. And while the whole, you look at West Virginia, man, it's like completely destroyed. Especially the places where there's, less jobs, more high unemployment. People are just like, hooked on these things. And it's like legal drugs, basically, just taken over. It makes the crack addict addiction of the 80s look like nothing.
Okay.
And somehow it's okay, right? Because it's corporate endorsed. In the 80s, all you heard about was Reagan crying about the drug war because these assholes weren't making any money. And, the money of the drug war was the actual running the war, just like the Afghanistan war. It was just a war to make money. It wasn't a war to stop anything. This stuff, you don't hear any war on opioids or anything like that because these assholes are all in it to make money. It's simple all around. Every little thing they do is for money, and that's it. All these Congress elected leaders are literally legalized mafia, and, if I was the mafia boss, I mean, I'm pretty sure the mafia is involved anyway, but,
Yeah. I totally hear you, man. So another speaking of Taliban, now we got some there's a silver lining in the dark cloud, sarcasm incoming, and that is Taliban vows to tackle the climate change amid the civilian executions. So you want to talk about this one a bit?
I heard about that a little bit. What were they going to do to stop climate change?
Look, I'm assuming they're just going to kill enough people because, as Michael Moore's Planet of Humans clearly shows that overpopulation is bad for the climate. So one way to deal with it is to kill as many people as you can. So
it's just going to go back into the like tribalism of like those 80s and the 90s. I mean, that place has always been that way.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think the only time it was even more stable was when it had that Soviet puppet regime in there. But when the regime fell, the Soviets just kept bombing everything, just like the U.S. So they try to, all these fake leftists on Twitter will try to say, hey, guess what? Look at these pictures of Afghanistan under Russia, and they'll show these massive buildings and everything looking all nice, and then they'll show the U.S. part all bombed out. But what they don't mention is that the Russians built all that shit just on the way out, just to make it look like they did something, but they were bombing just as much as the U.S. was.
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing that came to my mind was that puppet city in North Korea, whatever, at this border of South Korea. And people think, oh, this place is like a heaven, and then like there's nothing in there. I mean, but the thing is, so I know we think this is funny, but Taliban, like most other of these type of organizations around that knows how to get sympathy from these leftists, they have figured out how to tick the shit lip checklist. So because these groups have figured out all the hacks to give all these remember that word we use, BISOs, remember we used it like in the episode 3 or whatever. So so they would have figured out all these little hacks to give all these BISOs the brownie points, so they can get on Twitter and argue on behalf of Taliban while bringing back all these medieval laws that the type of medieval activities that a lot of these experts don't need to really account, because they figured out like what works for statistics. So here's what you got to do in order to game the stats, and these people are so clever that, like, I've actually noticed that a lot of the time when these type of groups work with useful idiots, they actually violate human rights in a way that doesn't go with the established like checklist in terms of how they draw statistics. So these shit lips can get onto it and say, okay, you know what, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, they didn't do that, all the stuff they did, it's not on our checklist, so it doesn't really account for our census or whatever. And these people are very clever that way, that they actually figure that shit out. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just nuts.
Yeah.
But I want to move on to like another thing that happened last night, was that Biden's supposed fake eviction moratorium was given the death sentence by our lovely corporate United States Supreme Corporate Court, and which is what Kavanaugh said he'd do if it came up again, right? And even Biden admitted this was legally shaky ground. But I remember the squad and their photo op on the Capitol steps, right? Declaring victory, right? Just before, just bought people like a few weeks before the free market ravages everybody. And I remember Frank Analysis was there. And when most of the people on the steps that day were like these congressional staffers, and I don't know if you remember, there were no cops anywhere, no cops beating people off the steps or anything like that. And I remember Frank Analysis asking them, AOC specifically, like, we can celebrate. It's only 10%. The 10%. First of all, 10% aren't covered, and then what happens when it's run out? And AOC was like, she actually used a Dick Cheney metaphor. She actually said, "We are here for reasons known and not Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld." Metaphor. She goes, "We are here for reasons known and reasons unknown." I remember that guy saying, "There are known knowns and there are unknown unknowns." So this woman actually, she didn't even know how she.
Like Big Lebowski, a lot of ins, a lot of outs. Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine using a Rumsfeldian kind of freaking verbiage to describe what you're doing. And he said we can't celebrate, and then we had Cori Bush, who immediately, just knowing what's happening, knowing that this guy's asking real questions and their performative shit bubble will be burst, she jumped in and says, "Time to turn on the music, yay!" First of all, I couldn't even believe that was a fucking congressperson. I know they all suck, but this was just like, oh my god. And you know what? Listen, man, I'm not gonna shit on people who are homeless ones, and but at the same time, just as I shit on these corporate Ivy League educated assholes who are like corrupt as shit, I'll also shit on these freaking dumbasses who just come off the fucking street and now are fucking legislators, but will behave like assholes when asked actual questions. So they all suck in different ways, but this is crazy, man. They were doing selfies, and I remember once they left the Capitol steps, the cops moved right in and kicked everybody else out. It was like they were being protected while they were in the thing, and they were just doing their, AOC and Cori Bush were defining the messaging and the strategy. They weren't letting anyone else like ask questions or anything like that. It fucking sucks.
Oh no, man! You mean to say that Cori Bush slept on those Congress steps with the private security while denying everybody else anytime, like while defunding the police? That was all for nothing. Oh man, that's just so heartbreaking. I mean, speaking of all these, homeless people having some kind of a massive political opinion. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Being homeless doesn't mean that you're going to be politically correct on everything, because for the most part you're fucked in the head. I mean, homelessness goes goes well with, I mean, it goes along with mental illness and all that. So we don't expect them to make the best decisions in life, obviously, but at the same time, it's like Antifa. That's why I say that half the people are like the like the kids from mom's basement whose parents are like professors, but then the other half are probably just homeless bums who are sort of going along with it because they get something for nothing, and suddenly they have found their foot in the doorway to have some sort of power in the society. And it doesn't mean that we have to approve everything they do, because the chances are that they're acting out their whatever the mental illness that they're going through. Yeah, so I mean, I'm not surprised at all that this whole thing sort of fell on its head, because it was like we said in the beginning, it was just performative radicalism. Yeah, that's all what it was. And it just and like we were saying the Supreme Court was always going to shoot it down because it's unconstitutional and it's illegal to begin with. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, what are they going to do now? Protest at the Supreme Court? Yeah, right. That's going to happen, and it won't even do anything. And the thing is, like, what are they going to do about, like, these lockdowns? Right. The reason why people can't pay their rent is because they're freaking lockdowns, right? And I mean, right now they're trying to push their mask narrative and their vaccine narratives. Even though there was a study that just came out today that said that if you already have COVID, right? They did a test in Israel because Israel is one of the most vaccinated countries on earth. They said that they did a study where, and I will put that in the show notes, where people who have had COVID have had an immunity 13 times that of vaccinated people, right? So they want everyone to get vaccinated whether you've had COVID or not. But the thing is, like, hey, why don't you get a vaccine that freaking stops you from spreading this disease first? Maybe that'll be better. But maybe then more people will accept it. But anyway, this is just a thing to get their lockdowns to continue. And when you have lockdowns unendingly, then people can't pay their rent, and then lockdowns leads to, like you said, homelessness. And they actually said that if you're homeless, you're shortening your life by 5 to 7 years, easily.
And also you can see though that this is one way they capitalize on all this shit. So they get people like homeless people to sort of infiltrate groups like Antifa. So you see all these events like you know that did you see the video of that female reporter who's actually not even from a right-wing network? She's an independent news network.
I think Taibbi talks about it, right?
Yeah, that's right. She just gets brutally attacked to the ground and just beaten, and you can see that. And Taibbi's like when Taibbi talks about it, he gets attacked. Why don't you talk about the Proud Boys or whatever? And this is a typical shit-laid narrative. And then Taibbi says a very good reply: when the Proud Boys attack a professional partner of mine, I will write about the professional partner. Then I will write about it. You know what I mean? I promise, because they don't. A lot of the Proud Boys, they don't really go after, they don't attack women to begin with. Like a lot of the time they are just a reactionary kind of a bunch of morons. So this is another way that a lot of this global sort of a global machine operates. They are happy to see all these sort of untamed lions, untamed beasts. They're happy to cut them loose and then see where it lands, and then try to create the optics, because they have the power now to select the optics, right? They can cherry pick what needs to be published and what's not. So when you have that kind of power, you're quite happy to take risks with that type of untamed element in the society.
Yeah, I was actually happy to see Taibbi talk about that. I was like, this Antifa narrative is just gone. I mean, we're coming at it from a different perspective. Like, we're not doing it like the right wing, right? Right wing will be just against anything left wing, but we know that Antifa is really not even that. So
because Antifa, you have to understand. I mean, anyone with a bit of common sense need to know that if I've noticed that a lot of the shit libs and all, they kind of have this sort of a very weird relationship with Antifa, right? So if Antifa does something good, then they sort of take credit for it. This is a bit like ISIS. You know what I mean? I mean, they have the same sort of type of terrorism attitude. So, like if they do something good, if they do something bad, then how can you prove it's Antifa? And so basically they create a political system where Antifa gets all the fucking immunity on the planet. And then they also have the liberty to sort of not take responsibility for the like own up to the good stuff and not take responsibility for the bad stuff. Because what is Antifa? If you're going to say that Antifa is just an ideology and not a group, and there's no way we can pin anything down on Antifa, then any one of us can be Antifa. So even if you could be fucking Ted Bundy or Jeffrey Dahmer, and you can claim yourself as Antifa, and you can commit all the crimes you want, and what you will have is a broader immunity from the media and the society and the law enforcement eventually, and the politicians. And then whenever you fuck up, then they can all say, you know what, this wasn't Antifa, because this is just someone claiming to be Antifa. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. So if you really need because you're kind of abusing the social fabric when you do that, because then what you're going to do is you're going to create a situation where the government can come in and like take your rights away, to say, okay, so if you don't, so we need to be able to, in order for us to be able to distinguish what is Antifa and what's not, we have to take some rights away from you and privileges, in order to, because they did that with the internet, they did that with Facebook, they did that with everything. Why wouldn't they do that with the like Antifa as well? So you can't, you need to take some responsibility. If you're going to give broad immunity to Antifa in order for them to do all that shit, then you also need to take the responsibility for all the bad things that can happen when people pretending to be Antifa, like does all these crimes. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. And yeah, so anyway, from this, I don't want to spend too much time on Antifa, to be honest, because I know that this is they're also a boogeyman, so I don't want to sound like a fucking boomercon here.
Before you go on to the next thing, I just want to quickly tell you that Obama is now saying, like so many of you, Michelle and I were heartbroken to hear about the terrorist attack outside the Kabul airport that killed and wounded so many U.S. service members, as well as all the other people we've killed, Afghan men, women, and children. This freaking douchebag, man. Seriously, peak shit lip, this guy.
Bitch, if you care so much about the American citizens, then why the fuck didn't you actually do better for in terms of giving them advance warning, and not to mention eviction? You know what I mean? Like you didn't do it, and you were charging $2,000 per head from these people for fucking
He's saying thoughts and prayers. That's all he's saying right now. Thoughts and prayers,
including New Zealand government. I think they stopped the evacuation process like 2 days ago, even though there are still like like people stuck in there. So
someone just sent a reply saying, "This U.S. plane shot victims fleeing Doctors Without Borders hospital in Afghanistan." That was him.
I mean, it's scumbag, man. So getting back to the vaccine. So I saw Joe Biden saying that so we know that FDA, okay, so the big news, FDA grants full approval for the Pfizer vaccine. You got any thoughts on that one before we go on to the vaccine?
Well, I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to pretend to be like very expert, but I always thought that approval took 5 years. So that's one thing.
Exactly.
I got to look into that. But I'm not going to go on a limb saying, hey, I know more than doctors. But then again, the FDA, the CDC, and all these government regulators are all corrupt. So I don't know how far that rabbit hole goes. And you know what? In 10, 20 years, it'll be like 9/11. 20 years from now, we'll be talking about, hey, remember 20 years ago when the vaccines were rolling out, and now we have mutants running around the planet.
Except
you know what I mean.
Except that like we have incredible human beings like Jon Stewart standing up for the 911 compensation fund, but we are not going to have that for the vaccines, unfortunately, because people don't have the kind of energy to take on the type of establishment that we are going to be facing in 50 years time. So we do know that FDA, whatever that's going to come in the next 20 years time, there aren't going to be Jon Stewarts fighting for it, because you can see that even with Jon Stewart, people like Jon Stewart, it's taking a toll on people like him to fight for the 911 compensation fund. I mean, these are people with bigger hearts than us. You know what I mean? So imagine what kind of a heart you will need to have in order to fight the liberal establishment. It's not going to be a conservative establishment in another 20 years' time. In terms of the vaccine damages and shit that's going to happen in the next 20 years. But there was also a video of Biden. I think he's speaking on a forum, vaccine.gov, where Biden calls out on US companies to mandate the COVID-19 vaccine for employees following the FDA decision. So this is a big fucking thing, because the reason why I know like a lot of people are like so fucking what. Here's the issue, guys. You know what I mean? The issue is that you guys are so fake in terms of how you interpret the constitution. So when you say free speech, right, you say, oh, you know what, free speech is not about fucking you not being able to say whatever you want, or the free speech is not free speech doesn't mean you don't suffer the consequences, which is the fucking stupidest thing I can ever literally I hear. Because of course, if you're going to suffer consequences for your free speech, then it doesn't matter what if you have free speech or not, right? I mean, back in 200 years ago, if you're going to have consequences for your free speech, it comes literally from the government itself, or the ruling class. That's why it was in the constitution. So it's the same fucking shit. If you're going to get fired for believing in something, then of course it's the same. It's almost as good as you being prosecuted or going to jail. So just don't be a fucking retard to just split hairs about what free speech means. So it's in the same way when Biden says that the companies should mandate vaccine. This is fascism, because you see what the government the Biden is saying, that all you private businesses, you should work with our interests. So if one of you have a sort of a differing or like a dissenting opinion, then you should fire them, because being fired is almost as good as being prosecuted, because you lose your means to support your family. You're at the risk of being homeless under a bridge or whatever, your children being exposed to all kinds of fucking crimes and everything. So yeah, so do you honestly think that being fired from a job is less than going to jail? Not at this time. I mean, so yeah, so it's the same thing. I think this culture of free speech should be sort of synonymous with the culture of what of the First Amendment in the Constitution. And that's the whole point of why you have these laws. So when you kind of work around it, when Biden calls out the companies to say that they should fire you because you have an opinion on this thing, it's literally you are violating the Constitution. Don't you think so?
Oh yeah, yeah, and I mean, it just follows along the same thing as in the censorship debate, where these people just are in lockstep with authoritarianism.
Yeah.
It's who would have thought in the '90s that shit libs? I mean, at that point we didn't know that were shit libs, just libs would have been like so in tune with just whatever the deep state wants. MSNBC has like literally CIA directors on its fucking payroll. Just straight from the fucking MIC complex to your mouth, basically, is what's happening now. And and it's like a dystopian future, man. I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's any, like you mentioned this a few weeks ago. There's no winning. There's no winning at all. They've got all the exits covered.
Rollo Tomassi.
Guarding
Rollo
everything.
Tomassi.
Exactly.
Yeah. Rollo Tomassi. Yeah.
So, I don't know what I mean, now even that's why I get so pissed off about that January 6th bullshit, because when that thing could have been used to actually extract actual demands like Medicare for all, housing, rent cancellation, UBI. Nope. It turned out to be for a fucking orange ghoul, man. That dude was in on the fucking plot, man. Seriously. If he wasn't, he'd be in jail. You see, they never go to jail. I think he became president just to stay out of jail, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've never heard of a president being imprisoned, so but I mean, it's a really, really bad time for people, and I don't know.
Yeah. And about Joe Rogan, he came out and offered refunds to fans who can't attend his shows due to the vaccine mandate. So I don't want to force them to get vaccinated. So see, once again, I know he's kind of a recurring theme, and this is why we kind of love the guy, because I know that sometimes I do have a beef with Joe Rogan, but I think he's too much of an apologist. He always has to explain. He always has to have a disclaimer that I love healthcare, I love this, I love that, before he sort of expresses a dissenting view. So he still acts within those. But I mean, my advice to Joe Rogan is, dude, don't fucking worry about it. Don't give disclaimers in the future. Tell him to suck a dick and just give your fucking opinion. And I mean, I know he's got a lot at stake compared to us. I mean, we don't have $100 million on stake. So yeah, so there's always that. But good on him for actually being one of the last few sort of mainstream renegades to still have a principle on this, because I don't believe that either. Because you see, when you look at the vaccines, is the whole idea, it's like, let's just say we talk about when you are born 1 to 4 years, right? So the kind of vaccines you get sort of, there is, look, I'm still sort of on the fence about whether that shit should be mandatory or not. But at least you have a sound argument for those vaccines, because because of the concept of herd immunity. You know what I mean? Like so
Yeah.
but this fucking mRNA vaccine, it is, you take it for yourself, because you have a less chance of dying. So you don't really have a moral obligation to take it for the broader society, because except you're playing this whole game of tribalism. Because if you're saying, oh, you're gonna kill your grandma, yeah, your grandma's still gonna fucking die if she's not vaccinated. And if you are, because you can still carry it. You know what I mean? Like, you can be vaccinated, but you can still it's not going to stop you from spreading it to the other people if you got it. And the chances are that your grandma's not going to fucking die from because if you're not vaccinated anyway. Because I don't know if you know, but a lot of these fucking aged care facilities are pretty fascistic. That means, if you're like an old person in an aged care, the chances are you're fucking vaccinated anyway. So
Well,
yeah,
as you
yeah.
know, they've also using like the death counts
Mm,
for COVID-19 in the
mm,
U.S. If you're like some, say if you're like a huge blue whale, with like 600
yeah.
pounds on you, and you have all these internal problems because from being overweight or obese, if you die of that while you have COVID, you're listed as being dead due to COVID.
Oh,
So we don't even know what the difference is. Like, what's the real like COVID death toll? Is definitely less, but they're using that to prop the numbers up so that they can enforce all their bullshit, like lockdowns and vaccination cards and stuff like that.
yeah, and they also get a lot of leverage in terms of like, the vaccinated and unvaccinated. I think if even if you're vaccinated, right? I think even if you're vaccinated, they still have a 2 week grace period or something, which they use in their favor. So let's just say, for example, if you're vaccinated and it was under 2 weeks, then you can be, and if you get victimized by COVID, then you count as being unvaccinated. So everything is geared against you. And I think in terms of the obesity, I think our girl Rita Panahi, and this is why she's always going to be my girl, because she's got this sort of a really wicked sense of humor. So there was an article where there this woman, and like, you can see her on her bed or whatever. I should have gotten vaccinated. Metro Detroit woman hospitalized day after COVID. She was diagnosed, but you can see that she's like really fucking big. We are talking about like morbidly obese, big in the terms like she's so fat that she can barely walk type of. And that's that. and
Right.
and, and exactly. So aside from the young or really old people who are affected by this, a lot of the younger people who are get affected by COVID are the people who suffer from comorbidities. And so Rita goes, yes, you should have been among the very first to be vaccinated. We've known for at least 16 months that morbid obesity is a huge risk factor for COVID cases. I remember interviewing doctors back in April 2020 about obesity and COVID. So that's her polite way of saying that, bitch, you're just so fucking fat. Of course, you should have, you have the same immunity as an old person. So so this is not something that this is a very fringe sort of this is not something that applies to the broader younger community. And this is absolutely true. You know what I mean? So unfortunately, that this is but unfortunately these type of opinions or these type of views don't seem to have a lot of traction because the mainstream media has all the power to control the narrative, just like it was with the freaking like all the what do you call the the age case, like remember you shared a meme with me that says that 45 out of 50 US governors did not force COVID 19 infected patients into nursing homes, but 5 of them did. And who are the 5, by the way? Which states were they from?
They're all the Democrats.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
it was Andrew Cuomo, Tom Wolf. I don't know if they were all Democrats, but it does give you a certain type
Yeah,
of,
they're all
yeah. So
Democrats. Yeah.
Phil Murphy,
Whitmer too, I think.
Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, our kidnap victim, the massive victim. So,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, the FBI plot.
Yeah, unfortunately, Andrew Cuomo, that guy, he did get he did suffer the consequences, but not for the right cause. Yeah.
Yeah, he got a total like other thing going after him for. I think they finally took away his Emmy
Oh no!
last
Oh
week,
no!
right? And you were just talking about media narratives. I'm just looking at a headline right here from the New York Times. Look at this. Read excerpts from Navalny's interview with the Times. This asshole is in jail. I want to know why Julian Assange isn't being fucking interviewed by the Times. This is called fucking mass propaganda, man. This is CIA fucking asset.
Oh yeah! Unbelievable, man.
It's fucking ridiculous. I mean, like, what kind of this is the media? This paper is a fucking joke, man. And yet the whole fucking world like blindly follows this shit.
Mm. Yeah.
It's nuts. It's just total chaos. And anytime you now, it's like I mean, that's why they put it into place in the '60s. The CIA. If you ever talked about anything that's a break from the narrative that they spin, you're like a conspiracy theorist. So you're a crazy person. Here's a straight jacket.
Yeah, I was having to be honest, I saw a conversation on Facebook the other day, and there was this chick who's like a Democrat. I mean, to be honest, that what gives me this sort of a Rollo Tomassi type of sinking feeling is that because this chick is actually more reasonable than most other type of Democrats or shit lives out there, which makes it even
Reasonable
yeah
shit
yeah
lib?
which makes it even worse because if this is the view she has, then imagine what the rest of them have type of situation. And she says that I not only want to see vaccine mandates, I want to see people being arrested for not having the vaccine.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
and it's not even because she believes in that stuff, because she kind of has a reasonable opinion that we shouldn't be sort of mandated. If you ask ask it as a standalone type of opinion, she'll say that no, that doesn't sound reasonable because it kind of takes away the liberal argument, or, like it kind of destroys it. But she says that in the United States, because so many men are sort of against certain types of laws relating to women, like abortion and shit like that, I want them to feel the same pain. So basically, what she's saying is that I want to be. She's saying that because most people who oppose vaccine, especially the COVID vaccine, are right wingers. I want to see them sort of suffer for their hypocrisy because they have the similar type of views when it comes to like the whole my body my choice argument with abortion. And I just thought that, so basically what you're saying is that you want to be like some sort of a hardcore conservative in order to get back at a bunch of old men because of the views they have on abortion. I mean, at face value, it just seems so reactionary. But but I do know that a lot of people are like this. This is a prime example of tribalism. You know what I mean? Like everybody is willing to sort of compromise on whatever the values that they claim to stand for, as long as they can get back at some one person. It seems very anecdotal when you think about it. So she's probably wants to get back at some old guy in some state she lived in, And she wants to see this type of very fascistic draconian laws being employed just to get back at that one person she probably had an argument on Facebook with. You know what I mean? And this is, I mean, unfortunately, this is the reality. This is just how most people think.
It's freaking nuts, man. Oh yeah, today is a sleepy podcast, man. I'll admit it. It's just been. I think we both are like on some kind of fume train here.
Look, man.
Um,
I fucking stayed up. I went to sleep at 3 o'clock. So we started this podcast at 6 o'clock. I would have gone to sleep at around 3:30 because I was up very late watching Alien with my
oh yeah,
yeah, because I must say that it's been a long time since I saw it, and I got to say that yeah, I know let's go on a tangent and talk a bit about the movies, right? Because we do that anyway. So I must say though that Alien, I mean, when was Alien first made? In 1979, right? So
that's
I mean,
right.
it fucking blew my mind how remarkably well this movie holds even after all this years. I mean, everything about the movie. I would say the only thing that doesn't hold in Alien, like after fucking 40 years, is just the fact that all those screens had the green text on it, like the old IBM PCs did, back in the
Yeah,
day. Yeah, aside from that, everything about the movie is just so fucking mind blowing. How I mean, that's why it's a masterpiece, right? It's just so yeah. I stayed up late watching that film, which is just why I couldn't. So I've only had like 2 hours of sleep since I saw Alien, and the one thing that I do want to bring up about Alien is like recent. Remember, you and I we saw Black Widow, right? Recently.
yes,
So they made it amply clear about the whole, everything can every aspect of the film can go, fuck itself, as long as we let everyone know that this movie is about female lead actors, female directors, female everything. And that was sort of that was the narrative. You kind of felt that throughout the movie. So that had to take precedence over everything else. And what was so cool about Alien and Sigourney Weaver's character Ellen Ripley? I mean, to me, she's an icon. In fact, I went to see Avatar only because of the brand power she had on that movie. So, so what was so cool about that film is that they didn't even try it. Like I know, like if you search for Alien and Ellen Ripley's character today, there's a lot of revisionist historians who are trying to sort of tie in feminism with this film. But you can
yeah,
clearly say that at the time the film was made, that wasn't really on in the mind of the director at all. They just wanted to make a film that was really fucking good, and the character just happened to be a lead female. Because it just gave them more sort of angles to exploit. She more emotions, more vulnerability, more that and this and that. It wasn't about this feminazi type of politics. And the fact that aliens managed to pull that off without even trying, like even today, like I had to be reminded that Alien is a movie where the lead character is a woman. That's just how good it was. You know what I mean? He just sort of slipped that under the rug without you even sort of realizing it. I think Jesus Christ, man. So I watched it yesterday and I was like, oh my god, I was absolutely like I was blown away by. Um, the performance and just how remarkably it held up well. So that's why I'm a bit tired, because I've just literally had only 2 hours of sleep after watching it. Yeah.
yeah. That's pretty good, man. I mean, I think my first one was Aliens. I saw the second one first in the '80s. Yeah, but and I think I saw Aliens last. The irony, I think I saw Aliens first. I saw Alien 3 second, and then I saw Alien right at the end. And it was weird, like I mean, it was just like watching it in reverse, almost.
Yeah,
But
I've never seen Aliens 3, but I know that it's directed by David Fincher, who's like one of, he's I think Aliens 3 is one of those movies that in his in his movie making career that he'd like to not talk about. He tries to bury that, but I know that even though like a lot of the fans of Alien 1 and Alien 2 doesn't like Alien 3, Alien 3 has gone on to sort of build its own cult following. And the reason why I actually got into Alien, like recently, Alien was on my mind because on Joe Rogan there was a film director who, this guy, he's pretty young actually. He did District 9 and Elysium and all that shit. I believe his name is Neil Blomkamp. I'm gonna fucking butcher it because he's a South African. So he did District 9, and he's
Okay.
sort of a heavyweight in sci-fi. So he came on Joe Rogan and to talk about sci-fi movies, and they started talking about aliens, and they wouldn't shut up for literal 2 hours. Yeah, this is another thing about Joe Rogan, though. Like, we know that Joe is great when it comes to talking about UFC and comedy, but we know that he has all these other types of niche interests that he doesn't really talk much about, but when he does, you can see, holy fuck, this guy's kind of an expert in this field. I think muscle cars or cars in general is one of those fields, and the other one is movies. Whenever Joe starts talking about movies, you just know that this guy knows his shit. He could be a great movie critic.
Yeah.
He could be Pauline Kael or whatever. So after I heard about them talk, I said, like, fuck, I really need to watch Alien again because I really absolutely loved it as a kid, and there's no reason why I wouldn't love it. And so my son, when he said like, Dad, can we watch Alien? I was like, oh, of course we would, because maybe we'll have a podcast soon about it, because so. Yeah, because there'll be a little bit of cross promotion here, so maybe we'll talk about Alien. So
Yeah.
yeah, I watched it. So when I watched it, it brought back all these great memories. So that.
Maybe you won't sleep now when you
Oh,
dream of
dude,
xenomorphs.
that's a thing though. See, when I was watching Alien, right? I wanted to tell. I had this real urge, like you can tell that I'm absolutely in love with her character. Like you can see that I'm infatuated with it, but I can't tell that to my kid. You know what I mean? But because he wouldn't even get it, because if you look at a lot of these 80s chicks, like we talked about before this podcast, they it's like the boys today will probably not be able to see what is so fascinating about them, because they kind of do look masculine, like even if you look at Sarah Connor or whatever. But even Sigourney Weaver, I mean, she is fucking gorgeous, but she had this box shape, sort of a squarish face, and the perm and everything. And the women today are like they kind of taken the whole aspect of what is feminine to a whole new level, in terms of appearing all soft and roundish and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I can see why kids growing up today may not be able to look at someone like Ellen Ripley's character and say, oh, she's hot, because we kind of saw it in a very different lens, from a different time, different perspective. That's the same thing with when I look at like Gloria Estefan or whatever. We talked about it before. Like, you remember how I was saying that, like we think she's really, like really attractive, but most people today will not, because they're kind of used to a different type of what constitutes femininity. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I think I'm gonna watch the trilogy again just because it's one of those things that piques your interest every once in a while. Plus, they did re-release it 2 years ago for the 40th anniversary, so I'd like to check it out in 4K HDR.
I mean, I would definitely love to do that too, because I would love to see like a remastered type of version of Alien. I mean, look, you don't really need it.
It is remastered. That's what I'm saying.
It
It
is
is
incredible.
remastered. Yeah.
So if you look at the Alien, the original one from 1979, they do some brilliant type of cinematography in that, because see, they don't have all the special effects that movies today do, so they have to rely on lighting and shadows and all that stuff in order to create the suspense. And the way they did Alien, you can see, like, right throughout the film, you can't actually see the alien very clearly, right? You can only see it in the
Yeah. Yeah.
corners. There's a lot of dark, like they use lighting a lot to hide the hide the hide the fact that yeah, imperfections basically. So even like remember right at the end when she's, I mean, spoiler alert, but fuck you if you haven't seen it 40 years after that, then I can't help you, like get some help. So yeah, so you can see like in the end, like when it sticks out his tongue or whatever, you can see it's clearly very electronic. It's not a very yeah, you don't know what to believe when you see it. You see, oh god, you don't know what the fuck you see. It's almost like a figment of imagination sometimes, you kind of think, because it just looks like when you open a stapler or whatever and you see that metallic shit sticking
Yeah.
sticking out of the stuff. That's just how it just looks like by today's standard. But it by no means takes away from the suspense of the film, because by that time you're so involved in the film that it just doesn't matter those little minuscule shit that makes the creature looks mechanical. And but so in that way, I do think that the film employs whatever they had at the time so brilliantly that even when you watch it today, it takes nothing away from it. I think Alien is one of those films that will never be, I don't think 100 years from now, if you're going to watch it, people are going to say, oh, that looks so lame or whatever like that. I don't think it will ever have that effect. I believe that it will always be timeless in terms of how it portrays the message to the people. Yeah.
Plus, it's got one of the greatest
Yeah.
directors of all time,
Yeah, I
man,
know,
Ridley
man.
Scott.
Ridley Scott, then followed by fucking Cameron. Was it David Cameron, right? James.
No,
Yeah,
James Cameron and David Fincher. Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, yeah. That's
you mix them up.
James Cameron and then David Fincher. So yeah, it's incredible. So speaking of movies, there was another movie that you've never seen that I've been meaning to make you watch, which we did end up watching. You want to talk about it?
Which one is that?
Come on, dude.
We watched a bunch of movies, man.
What's the movie that we watched last week?
Damn, I've already forgotten. Can you? I'm that sleepy.
That's all right. So we watched. We did mention this in the last podcast that we were going to watch this, and that was Big Lebowski. What did you think of that?
Oh yeah. Of course, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, it's just like I actually watched two movies back to back yesterday, so I'm just like in a little bit of a daze. Yeah, it was great. It was great. The one thing that was really surprising to me was that I've always seen the covers of the dude, right? And you hear the memes and you see the images of the dude for 20 freaking years, right? But in reality, in the movie, it's just like some self-applied label, man. The guy's getting smacked left and right everywhere he goes, right? He's not even tough.
He's a pacifist. He's a pacifist. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, if you didn't know that, if you didn't watch the movie, and then you just happen to just see the just see the pop culture around the movie, and then this guy gets to be larger than life, and you think he's like some crazy super guy, like bigger than life, and then he's just getting smacked everywhere. It's just really funny for me.
You got to sort of appreciate the circumstances this guy gets himself into. So he's just some lazy man, a deadbeat. Yeah. So there were a lot of deadbeat type of movies that came out during the 90s, or even in fact the whole like the movies and TV shows. So you got Seinfeld, where everyone was like kind of a deadbeat, so, and then you had TV shows like animated shows like Rocko's Modern Life, etc. And then you had the Big Lebowski. So most of these people were kind of, but in this guy's case, so he gets confronted by rich people and goons, right? So he is a pacifist who kind of navigates through all that shit in a way that he ends up all right in the end, so because the guy's kind of got no ego, and in many ways this is I think there are so many sort of philosophers out there who have tried to attribute lots of ancient type of philosophies from Buddhism to even I think there's a Chinese philosophy, I'm not sure, I think it's I think guy's name is Lao Tzu or whatever like that, who gives this go towards the east type of narrative. So the whole idea is just to take it easy, and not get too involved with so in Big Lebowski you can see that this guy, of course, he's a deadbeat, he's a lazy guy, and he gets into all these confrontations, and you see all these characters around him, like his friend Walter, who's like on the extreme end of the spectrum in terms of having principles and beliefs, and he's extremely opinionated and extremely sort of, he's kind of a almost a trumper by today's standards when you look at him. Which is funny because if you look at most Trump supporters, they're exactly like this guy in terms of, he believes in all the wars and the Vietnam and the, all the brotherhood and the manhood and all that shit. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, there are all these characters like the nihilist who believes in nothing, and in between you have all these sort of pornography magnates and all these flawed characters, and it's the whole film is sort of an experiment with people with different types of ideologies and worldviews, as opposed to this guy who just just wants to chill. He wants to just enjoy the simple things in life, and I think that's what the whole movie is about, and it can be inspiring if you actually read into all that stuff. If you read into how tense every character is, like you look at the Julianne Moore's character, who's like this unbearable shitlib who and in the eyes of the dude, all these people seem to be always fucking stressing out over very minuscule, and they make such big deals out of just very trivial situations, and that's just how I see it as well. Sometimes when I see people coming and they're all serious and they're trying to lecture me about stuff, I feel like kind of shrugging it off and laughing off, but I can't. But because the reason why I feel that way is because all these people are so tense, and they're they're blowing something out of proportion when they could be fucking taking it easy in life, and that, I think in that way, that's what the movie tries to portray. And in fact, there's a whole religion, in fact, um, inspired by this movie. I believe it's called Dudeism. You know what I mean? They advertise themselves as the world's slowest growing religion, in fact. So they're already trying to not give put too much pressure on themselves to advertise as the world's fastest growing religion or whatever like that. So so they are already like, they have a very pacifist type of attitude. I think even Gandhi had this type of attitude, very pacifist type of attitude. Like even when sometimes which got him in trouble, even with Nazis, like he had this very pacifist type of attitude. Like so. I'm glad that you liked it, though. You know what I mean? Because it's one of those films that it's very offbeat, and the like my wife, for example, when she first saw it, she absolutely hated it. But because I've been watching it so many times over the years, she's like, how much I fucking hate you, because I hate this fucking movie, but you kind of made it grow on me because you've seen it so many times when I didn't want to, sort of type of situation. So I mean, the same way I think the Big Lebowski, you can see that if you look at the box office, like when it came in 1998, and it was a huge flop, but it kind of went on to become a massive cult film without most people even realizing. In fact, the makers of the movie didn't realize that it was a cult film many decades later, until they realized that in places like Comic-Con and all these sort of festivals, people were keeping the legacy alive, and they were like, okay, maybe there was something to this. But the thing is, it was a big budget movie that flopped, and I don't think there will ever be another movie like that, because because if you look at the kind of risk they took with this film, they've taken a lot of risk. I mean, if you look at the cast now, it's a big cast, and it was a lot of high production values, and I'm sure that capitalism will not allow that type of experiment to happen very often.
It's funny because I keep saying capitalism is an invention and creates good things, but when it does, it doesn't repeat them, apparently.
It does. Yeah,
Bottom
exactly.
line
So
always.
I can't see a film like Big Lebowski ever actually becoming a phenomena again, because nobody's going to want to, like sacrifice $50 million hoping that it might pay off in terms of ancillary, like 20 years later. They just want the money now, instantly, within 6 months or
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah. Yeah.
All right, cool, man. So it looks like we're gonna be
Yeah,
done
just like
today,
in Big
I guess.
Lebowski, it looks like I was rambling there for a minute. Like at the end of Big Lebowski, that the cowboy character says,
Yeah.
"Oh, here, look at me, I'm rambling again," and I was rambling for a long time.
Well, you're gonna be rambling in your sleep,
I
right?
don't know, man. I think I'm I kind of see. I was very sleepy because after watching Aliens, I wanted to go to sleep, but then now, like I'm all awake and shit like that. So who knows, man? I mean, I'll try and go to sleep, but
I think I'll be awake for a few hours. I don't want to screw up my day clock, but yeah, and so why don't you tell our listeners who are new where they can find us?
yeah. So you can find me on True Free Thinkers, Thinkers True Free on Twitter, or like you can find me on Beyond Narratives on Facebook. I think we have our Facebook. We actually have a Facebook page called yeah,
Yeah, we got to work on that
facebook.com
also, right? A little
dot
bit
beyond
more.
narratives. Sometimes I often if you look at our footnotes, I can see I often link a lot of our material, like our resources and shit, from that. So yeah, you can find us there. Yeah.
All right, and you can find me, Alan Effects, ALINEFX _ on Twitter. And yep, we'll catch you guys next week, and hopefully we'll be back a little bit more pumped up than our depleted selves today. But it's just been one of those days. But hey, we're still at it, man. We've done 3 in a row without dropping
Yeah,
a beat, so
exactly.
you know, stranger things can happen. But till then, folks, we'll catch you guys
Peace
later.
out.
Peace out.